This is the Tree of Life, Season 18, Chapter 7. In this episode, we will be looking at how tautological natural law and natural law by authority each play a role in bifurcation of perception, and both types of substitution event. The timing of negation and acquiescence, or submission determines whether a substitution event, or a reverse substitution event results. However, the bifurcation of perception, during the transitionary period, is produced by the interaction of tautological natural law and natural law by authority. In ordinary substitution events, the negation comes before the acquiescence or submission to an impulse. In reverse substitution events, the negation comes after the acquiescence or submission. To artificially create these two forms of substitution events requires manipulation of the timing of negation and acquiescence to an impulse. There are many ways to manipulate the timing of these two factors in the alteration of the temporal coordinates of a substitution event. It can be done by using ritual pursuant to natural law by authority. It can be done by manipulation of the rhythms described by the given impulses. Or you can manipulate timing through conventionality, tautological natural law, or by rule setting, natural law by authority. Thus, there are 5 types of systems based upon 2 factors, which manipulate the temporal coordinates of substitution events. 1. Closed and hierarchical. 2. Closed and democratic. 3. Open and use existing hierarchies. 4. Open and use immanent subject. 5. Open and democratic. Each type of the 5 systems produces either a closed community with proprietary experience channels, or an open community with non-proprietary experience channels. For the hierarchical varieties, including immanent subject, they rely upon natural law by authority to determine the temporal coordinates of substitution events. For the democratic variety, they rely upon tautological natural law to determine the temporal coordinates of substitution events. Of course, these 5 systems have various subtypes and hybridizations, which can be produced incorporating elements of both democratic, or hierarchical, or open, or closed systems. Now, bifurcation of perception, during the transitionary period, is caused by the interaction of the digital and analog streams during a substitution event. For example, in a substitution event, the bifurcation of perception is caused by the stickiness of the digital stream, which is a string and of a negational valence, in the process of transformation of an analog structure to an digital one, as it switches from the analog stream to the digital stream. The process by which this occurs during a substitution event is as follows. As we saw in an earlier episode, an ordinary substitution event is characterized by an atomized analog stream described by an affirmational valence, and a string described by negational valence within the digital stream. This is the first step in an ordinary substitution event. In this state, the perceptions of external objects coinciding with the self-representation are divorced from those contextual to the vessel, the analog stream. This continues during the substitution event, which represents the sublimation phase, the elongation of phase. The next step is the phase flip. This involves the flipping of the valence of the structure from the analog stream as it become embedded within the digital string from affirmational to negational. The next step is the verbalization step. In this step, the analog structure of a now negational valence becomes integrated into the digital string, becoming affirmational and segmenting the string. Thus, negation comes before acquiescence or affirmation as described earlier in the podcast. In a reverse substitution event, the process involves the transformation of a digital structure to an analog one. In this case, the first step involves the flipping of valence of each adjacent structure within the string, which is the analog stream comprising a negational valence to an affirmational valence. This bisects the string into 2 or more sections around the structure itself, which is then atomized. It moves into the digital stream, which is of an affirmational valence and is atomized. There it becomes a digital structure by flipping to a negational valence through interaction with the digital stream. Thus, negation occurs after acquiescence as described earlier in the podcast. In the first step in a reverse substitution event, we see displacement mirroring occurring at the beginning of the process. In an ordinary substitution event, we see displacement mirroring occurring at the end. That's the end of the podcast for today.